Hello everyone and welcome. As we all know already, due to the enormous amount of hype, Apple introduced their latest iPhone 13s last week. We already have the first reviews out, first impression videos done by creators who received theirs early, and pre-orders will start delivery in certain markets as early as tomorrow. So I thought I'd put together a short buying guide of sorts for the entire lineup, going through each and every single model separately to decide which one is best suited depending on your own needs. Because, well, there still may be people on the fence, people who haven't decided yet, or just like me, people who are in a market where deliveries won't actually happen until early October at the earliest. Before we get any further, I'd like to point out that more than 90% of people who watch my videos aren't subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, smash the like button on the video and make sure to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any of my future videos. With the self-promotion part out of the way, let's get to it. Now, just like Apple did in their own presentation, I'm going to break this video down in two sections. Basically, one will address the vanilla models, the 13 mini and the regular 13, and the second part we're going to address the 13 Pro and Pro Max respectively. Why am I doing that? Well, simply put, because this year there is an increasing gap between the regular models and the Pro models. So first the 13 and 13 mini. Spoiler, I did an entire video about the 13 mini and why I think that's the best iPhone to buy, but I'll try to be as objective as possible in today's video. A short recap of all of the stuff that Apple introduced. So first up in the looks department, the iPhone 13 looks very similar to the iPhone 12. Basically from the front they're almost indistinguishable. You have a slightly smaller notch, a 20% smaller notch. That's not really a big deal, at least from what I've seen from all of the reviewers. Apple isn't using that extra screen real estate in any way, shape, or form. So if you hated the notch before, maybe now you'll hate it 20% less. For me, that's not really an issue. So visually, they are nearly identical to the iPhone 12 before then. And I would actually call the iPhone 13 and 13 mini the iPhone 12s if you want, because there are improvements across the board for both of these devices, but they're not dramatic in any way compared to the iPhone 12s. First up, we have differences when it comes to the cameras. They're obviously now placed in a diagonal arrangement as opposed to last year's vertical one. The sensors are larger, they let in 47 to 50% more light if I recall correctly in the presentation and some of the videos. Obviously, they take great photos, great videos as well. That was always the iPhone's forte, and it's not going to change this year. Apple made sure that the 13 mini and the 13 also both support the new cinematic mode, which is like Apple taught for portrait video. There's a few caveats here to mention. First of all, it's pretty neat that the A15 chip inside the new iPhone 13 supports editing the bokeh effect or the fake depth effect in both in real time and in post-processing of the video clip itself, which is pretty cool. Requires quite a lot of computing power, so props to Apple for making that happen. But there's also a negative side. That video seems to be capped at 1080p 30 fps, and it's across the entire range, so the 13 and 13 mini aren't missing out on anything when it comes to this new feature. So since I've already mentioned the A15 chip, it's time to discuss the performance improvements, and this is where the biggest gap exists between the regular 13s and the Pros. So the regular 13s get the standard A15 chip with a 4-core GPU, so 4-core graphics, and this represents a 10 to 20% improvement over last year's A14. Nothing major, nothing dramatic. Apple is using the exact same 5nm process node as before, so we couldn't really expect massive jumps in performance. Now, I've been using the 12 mini for the better part of last year, so the last 10 months or so, and this thing has never been slow. So an improvement to an already fast chip is actually a pretty good thing. A significant improvement has been in battery life. Both the 13 mini and the 13 get sizable increases over the last year. I think the mini gets something around 10%, while the regular 13 gets 15% better battery life. What does this increase in battery size actually translate to? Well, the iPhone 13 apparently has 2 hours extra battery life than the iPhone 12 before it, and the 13 mini has 1.5 hours, I believe, over the 12 mini. In simpler translation, the 13 should last you the entire day without any sort of issues, and the iPhone 13 mini with the same moderate usage should now last you throughout the day without having to charge it along the lines. Another significant improvement in my eyes is the display itself. No, we're not getting 120 Hz refresh rate on the regular 13 or 13 mini, but we are getting significantly higher brightness. 800 nits of brightness for both the 13 and the 13 mini means that it's now as bright as last year's Pro and Pro Max respectively, so it would be very legible outdoors. I used both the 12 mini and the 12 Pro Max last year. The Pro Max for about 3 months during the summer, and I have to say that the display on the Pro Max handled direct sunlight a lot better than the previous mini. So all of these improvements tend to add up. So now a conclusion on the iPhone 13 and iPhone 13 mini. Who should buy each of them? Well, an important point to note is that they are very, very similar. They're basically identical phones in terms of specs. The only difference between them is the display size and the battery size. And here I'm a bit biased. I use the 12 mini, I love it a lot. The 13 mini, it would be better addressed to those who are moderate users who don't use their phones very heavily throughout the day, or else the smaller battery, albeit improved over last year, should still struggle a little bit. So if you're a moderate user that doesn't spend every single waking moment on their phone or checking notifications all of the time, you're not super interested in a lot of media consumption or a lot of heavy gaming on it, and love the idea of a small flagship, the 13 mini is the one for you. However, I realize that that's not most people. In reality, most people should be better off by buying the iPhone 13. Well, if you're a casual user, you're not particularly interested in high-end gaming on your mobile phone, and you want to take very good pictures and videos, but they don't represent a huge part of your usage of the phone. You want to have great battery life that lasts you throughout the day. You want to have a bright screen that can handle outdoor conditions really, really well without losing brightness or legibility. You want to have a nice OLED panel that still sports 60 Hz refresh rate, but is still among the smoothest out there. Well, all of this put together means the iPhone 13 is the perfect choice for you. Oh, and I forgot to mention something. Both the 13 mini and the 13 actually get now double the base storage, so 128 gigabytes. So which one would I personally choose? Well, if it wasn't for the YouTube channel, I would definitely go for the base 13 mini. It has all of the features that I want, basically all of the features of the iPhone 13, in a smaller package that I like and can live with, and also at a lower price, $730. Now, the second part, we're going to discuss the 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max, and these are now a separate model in more ways than before. So generally, the differences between the Pro and the non-Pro models would be resumed cameras and a better display, and that was about it, and maybe some visual cues and some materials being slightly different. Well, this year, this is actually expanded, so you get a much better display. Now it's a 120 Hz refresh rate panel with adaptive refresh rate, so not only can it stay at 120 Hz, it can go all the way down to 10 Hz. It can adapt the refresh rate based on the content you have on the display. So obviously, you're going to be using a lower refresh rate when you're viewing static content, for instance, reading a book, and much higher refresh rate all the way up to 120 Hz when you are playing a game, for instance. Apart from that, the display also gets another improvement in terms of brightness. So over the 800 nits of the non-Pro variants, you get 1000 nits max brightness on the Pros, which is pretty impressive. On paper, this would make them the brightest displays out there. I'm gonna wait for more in-depth reviews from reviewers, but generally this means they are very, very, very bright and very easily legible outdoors, or at least they should be. Obviously, the better cameras with more functionality. You also have a telephoto built in now into the ultra-wide camera. So up till now, the usual improvements over the regular phones. Well, this generation adds another bonus. The GPU inside is the most powerful ever. It's about 20% more powerful than that in the regular 13 and 13 mini. So all in all, this adds up to a very significant improvement over the base model. So who should buy either of these phones, and how much should you spend for them? Because there is another caveat here. You see, the base options start at the same prices as last year, $999 and $1099 respectively in the US. However, you don't really want to get the base storage 128GB options. ProRes is a video format, a codec introduced by Apple, which allows easier editing and the sort. It's basically very useful in the video editing world, but it has a big downside. It consumes a ton of storage. So basically, filming at 4K for about a minute with the iPhone 13 Pros will result in about 6 to 7 gigabytes of storage being consumed. So Apple, in their immense wisdom, instead of upping the base storage from 128 to 256 across the range, has decided that the base Pro models with just 128 gigabytes of storage will only be able to film ProRes at 1080p resolution. So this means that if you buy the base model, you are getting a watered down version, even if it's just for this particular functionality. Now, you may not really use it that much, you may not be enthusiastic about it, but in my honest opinion, if you want the phone to retain its best resale value on the market, don't go for the weakest and cheapest option here. Go for the 256, which is going to be around $100 more expensive. So this means the regular 13 Pro starts at $1,100, and the Pro Max starts at $1,200. Pretty expensive phones. Okay, so decision time. Who should buy either of these phones? If you are big into photography, if you're big into videos, obviously go for the Pros. If you are big into gaming, you're going to benefit from that display with 120Hz refresh rate and the bigger brightness. That's a big plus as well. If you want the best battery life out there, the Pro Max is the answer. It will probably be a 2-day phone with moderate usage. All in all, I would say they're not necessarily for pros, but those who are willing to pay for extra features to get the latest and greatest features in their phones, and who can do a little bit of pro usage to a certain degree. Now, what about me? What did I choose? Well, if I would have chosen as a regular person day-to-day usage, I would have probably gone for the 13 mini. It's the cheapest in the range, offers the most features that you could get in the iPhone 13 for a decent price, and it would be more than enough for day-to-day usage, at least in my case. However, this year I didn't pick that one to start. I picked the 13 Pro Max because I am running a YouTube channel. I'm going to use the YouTube channel as an excuse here. I want the best cameras possible because I've been debating the entire summer, should I get a dedicated camera for my channel or can I continue filming with my phones? And I'm going to try continue filming with my phones by getting the iPhone 13 Pro Max. I'm a bit disappointed with the cinematic video being capped at 1080p and 30 FPS. I was hoping it's going to be at least 1080 with 60 FPS. But I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to try it out and I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to link some of the more interesting reviews and interesting videos that I've seen in the description to this video. Check them out. Be sure to inform yourself, make the best decision possible for your own use case. All of them have disadvantages. So the 13 mini, for instance, is the most compact, is the smallest of the lot, looks quite elegant in my opinion, but has the shortest battery life, smallest display. The regular 13 is the vanilla variant. Again, it's the most suitable for everyone, but it's not going to have all of the features that you may want. The 13 Pro, on the other hand, has all of the features, has the same format size as the regular 13, but does not really bring a massive increase in battery life as opposed to the regular 13. So if you're looking for the best battery life, then inevitably you're going to land with the 13 Pro Max, which has the biggest battery life, the biggest display, and obviously the one that is the best for consuming media. But it's also the most expensive and the one that occupies the most space. This is not a joke. These phones, the 13 Pro Max especially, is really heavy. At 240 grams, it's a bit of a chunker. So you're gonna feel it when you're holding it for a long time. You're definitely going to feel it in your pocket. It's going to occupy an entire pocket by of itself. You're gonna have to live with this not insignificant piece of hardware in terms of weight. So it's really up to you. And this has been it for today's video. If you enjoyed the content, please consider giving it the thumbs up and subscribing to my channel so that you don't miss any of my future videos. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.